just as you stand, asking out Maho Nishizumi. You walked briskly down the streets of the campus to the small mechanic shop you kept near the outskirts of the Kuromorimine Campus, with several boxes of gear in hand. It was of the utmost importance that you made it back on time to get to work, or else you might find yourself in big trouble from. Your thoughts were interrupted as you tripped and fell onto your chest, and slid forth into a pair of shoes. Her shoes. You looked up to see Maho standing over you before quickly looking down again in shame. "You ought mind where you're going," she scoffed. "I sure hope you aren't this clumsy with my equipment." Sorry, you began. "Sorry for what?" asked one of Maho's friends, sneering at you. Are you some sort of gross pervert trying to look up her skirt?" "What?" you exclaimed. No, I... The two friends of Maho began laughing, but she just stared down at you with her cold, piercing brown eyes. As if the shame of her friends mocking you was not enough, it had to come before her. You lowered your gaze from her own to save you from her glare, and began to get up, picking the boxes of parts back up along with you. This was just the usual treatment that you got from her friends, from many of the upper-class students who were so abundant here, and the usual coldness that you got from Maho. You started walking past the group shamefully, though not without hearing Maho's friends begin to speak ill of you. "Honestly, Maho, I don't know why you put up with having that moron work under you. I mean, you could easily afford someone so much better than him to do mechanic work for you," said one. "Yeah, and besides, he's so below you," laughed her friend. "His overalls, they're always so grimy and his hands so dirty. It really shows his class." "Enough," growled Maho. "I don't want to think about this any more than I need to." Your heart sank as you sulked back to your shop to get to work on the piece for Maho. It just didn't seem fair. They always made fun of you. They always made you feel bad for your status. But as if it weren't enough to be mocked in front of Maho, well, that just wasn't what upset you. It was the coldness, well, who the coldness came from that hurt the most. And as if it were not enough to be made to simply feel below her, you also had a deep crush on Maho. And all of this just made her feel so much further outside of your reach. There were days that you wished you could just prove your worth to her. You loved working for her more than any other. Knowing that it was your work that helped her out on the battlefield gave you great pride. But alas, you knew that you could never be enough for her. After all, she was simply of higher status than you. It was late in the afternoon when you heard the chimes of your shop door ring as a group of students walked in. You got up from your seat to greet the people entering your shop, setting down the finished product for Maho. "Hello, welcome to..." You stopped as you saw Maho standing with her arms folded, both of her friends at her side once more. "Oh, hi Maho." "Hi," she said flatly. "Hey, moron," her friend added. You felt a twinge of vexation at the insult levied against you. "Is there something that I can do for you?" you asked. "What do you think, idiot?" asked Maho's second friend. "My trigger assembly. Is it done?" asked Maho. You were about to say, "Of course," when just then you thought about what you may have possibly missed. Perhaps you were too distracted thinking about Maho to give your full attention to your work. But you couldn't remember, at least not in front of her, if you were totally finished. Certainly you didn't want to lie. "Not quite," you started to say, trying to ignore Maho's friends. "Not yet. God, he really is hopeless, Maho. That idiot." "Can you please stop calling me that?" You sighed, halfway speaking only to yourself. You wanted to just ignore them. After all, it wasn't your place to tell a superior how they should speak to you. But then again, this was your shop, and it was in front of Maho. "What was that?" asked Maho's friend, her thought having been interrupted by her anger. "I couldn't hear you. Maybe try speaking up in a proper accent that anyone of worth would understand." You were getting tired of Maho's friends bullying you. Perhaps it would be best of you to say something. This was your castle. Best practice would be to stand your ground in it, if nowhere else. "I said, can you please stop calling me that?" You said more firmly this time. Maho's face moved slightly as you spoke up, though you couldn't read her emotion. "Do you know who our parents are?" asked the second girl angrily as you spoke up. "I don't give a damn who they are. I've had enough of you disrespecting me, let alone disrespecting me in my own shop." You growled. "You're a half-rate mechanic. Why don't you go back to tinkering with your little toys, and don't waste the time of someone as great as Maho?" laughed Maho's first friend. "My work is more than worthy of her. I make sure of it." You growled at her. "You'll never be worthy of Maho's attention," yelled back the first girl. You felt that last like a punch in your gut, but tried not to show it. Before you could respond, a voice cut you off. "That's enough," yelled Maho. "You two, leave me be. I'll handle this myself," she said, rolling up her sleeves. The two gasped, standing still for a bit, but then looked back at you as they began to leave. "You're in so much trouble from the boss. He's not even worth our time," mocked the second girl. You waited for them to exit before speaking up to Maho. I'm sorry," you began. "Thank you," said Maho in a somewhat warmer tone than usual. You looked up, shocked at her comment. "Huh?" you asked. "For standing up for yourself," she replied. "Oh, well, yeah, of course," you chuckled nervously. "You know, I never really thought you had it in you to," she began. "But then again, I've hardly taken any time to know you." You sighed, leaning against the shelf between the two of you. "Yeah, sounds about right. Let me guess. I looked weak to you, and so you didn't want to talk to me?" Maho shook her head. "It isn't that. It's just, how can I respect someone who refuses to respect himself? You always just took it from them when they disrespected you. You just let them. I hope you didn't expect someone else to stand up for you." You shook your head quickly. No, it isn't that either. I just..." "You didn't think so much of yourself?" she asked. You paused, wanting to say no, but you had nothing to respond with. "Why did you stand up to them this time?" she asked curiously. "Well, because you responded earnestly. "Because me?" she asked. "Tell me, it isn't affirmation you seek from me?" "Nay, it isn't that either. I'm confident in my ability. I know my work is worthy of your patronage, for I make sure that nothing that leaves my shop isn't. Besides, you come back to me always, so surely, if it were too bad for you, you wouldn't be here. But yet, it is as she says so. I'm not one of your status. I'm not one so noble as you. I'm a tradesman. I have been, I always will be. I'm beneath you. All of you." You sighed. "Did you just lie to me?" asked Maho. "No, never," you countered. "Then how say you that you are both worthy of my patronage, and yet you are also beneath me? Could I operate my tank with any person's work but yours? Perhaps, but I trust none besides you to do the work for me. You're not below me, nor I above you. Though we are not the same, it is fair, our relationship," explained Maho. She walked to your side of the shop and looked over the trigger assembly, analyzing each component. "Is the assembly up to your liking?" you asked her. "Is it up to yours?" she replied. You stopped before answering. I think I can always do a little bit better. I'd like to double-check my work." "May I?" she asked. You nodded, and Maho handled the assembly for a moment before answering. Then perhaps I'll trust that you refine it further when I bring it back next time. But it feels more than all right to me, she responded happily. Maho placed the part in her own bag and smiled. You held your breath as the thought rested on the tip of your tongue. But while you two were being open, do you think perhaps I might be able to take you out sometime? You asked as she looked back up to you. Maho smiled politely, then nodded. But don't come seeking to impress me. Come simply as yourself and let us be equals. If you come seeking to show yourself as someone you're not, should I fall in love with you, I wouldn't really love you at all now, would I? But who you show yourself to be. You felt yourself stand at attention as the idea hit you. Maho approached you, placing a hand upon your shoulder as she added, But worry not. I think you are more than interesting enough, just the way you are. Maho smiled and gave you a peck on the cheek before setting up a date for you both.